And people are waiting already.
Right.
Just need to open a PDF here so I can get some light. Okay, there. Now you can see my face. Okay, so we're gonna go live. Go live. And we're live. Greetings in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. I'm Andre, and I'm here with Leon from China, Dune from Australia, and Ivor Loffing from the United States, and I'm from Canada, and we're going to be talking about peak oil today. Oh, we were scheduled for Steve Rocco, but he wasn't able to make it. Due to health issues, but we're going to reschedule him for February the 12th. All right. So, did anyone have anything they wanted to present or talk about today in particular? Oh, go ahead, Ivor.
I just wanted to say about the CEO of Occidental Petroleum telling the World Economic Forum, or in other words, Davos, that we're in trouble around 2025 in terms of the amount of petroleum. And also Art Berman pretty much confirmed that with his approximation. So just see what people think about that. You know, finally it's in the mainstream.
I'll try and get that up on the screen for us. Was it in the peak oil chat?
No, I just I saw it.
It's
been mentioned in the peak oil chat, but not.
Yeah, I think I've seen it on Twitter as well. Yeah.
Here, yeah, and then, I can't remember where.
But they don't get put onto the mainstream, do they? These conversations.
God. No, but I mean, you know, if you get it to all those big people, that's a pretty big thing. All of the big people are aware of it. So, I mean, you know, that kind of lets the cat out of the bag, you know? So,
yeah. So Leon Mead is in China, and you are down here in near Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
So
it says it's Hong Kong, yeah.
So it says it's 3 degrees over there on average.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's chilly for you. I know that this is kind of one of the things that's happening now, and it's related to the oil in terms of because our climate is destabilizing. And I know that that's another thing that people have mentioned is that we've kind of left the stability of the Holocene, and we're now entering more chaotic weather patterns of the Anthropocene. And Dune, it's summer where you are, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind just having a short, giving you a little fill in about the weather here, because it's kind of interesting. With the El Nino, like there was predictions that it was going to be dry here, which is what happens a lot of the time, but not necessarily every El Nino. But with global warming, the CSIRO have shown that the pressure belts move southwards in the southern hemisphere and likewise northwards in the northern hemisphere as the temperature heats up. Well, this year in Australia, like normally we have a high pressure belt runs across the centre of Australia, and in the winter time it moves northwards, so you get these cold fronts coming from the Southern Ocean, bringing winter rain to southern Australia. And in the summertime, it moves southwards, bringing tropical conditions to the north in the summer. So we have Australia's divided into a summer rainfall maximum in the north and a winter rainfall maximum in the south. And interestingly, this year, the summer rainfall maximum, even despite the El Nino, has moved the high pressure belt has moved way south compared to what it should be, and it's been often south of Tasmania, and that's meant that a lot of the tropical conditions have coming all the way across Australia, and we're getting lots of rain in eastern Australia. And there's floods. We've had 2 disasters in Queensland, and there's a new cyclone due to cross the coast of northern Queensland in a couple of days' time, with major flooding and expected to be a big disaster with lots of billions of dollars worth of damage.
Wow.
So we're actually, to my mind, given the predictions from the CSIRO, we're seeing that destabilization of the normal system, and that's going to mean.
And what's the CSIRO?
Commonwealth Scientific Industrial Research Organisation, which is basically like Department of Energy, and it's the scientific arm of the Australian government, basically.
Oh, okay. Cool. So yeah,
I just want to add to that, Dune, as well. From my perspective here in China, what I noticed last year was that we had, during the summer period, a heightened temperature. So a normal temperature would be around early 30s, but in our area in South China, we had temperatures in the mid to pushing latter 30s, and that was a common thread. So temperature-wise was definitely up. We also had, I think it was 2 super typhoons enter the Chinese Sea. They didn't hit land as super typhoons, but nevertheless, they were super typhoons at one stage. So definitely the weather pattern here is not the same.
Yeah,
as,
and I would like to add that is rice flowers become non-viable at temperatures above 35 Celsius. It can disrupt the reproductive process of rice plants, leading to poor pollination and reduced grain yield. And so that is like if you're having high temperatures during that rice flowering stage, that could be very bad for rice growing regions. And I know, I'm pretty sure they grow rice there. I don't know what they grow where you are, particularly.
Yeah. There's rice paddies, lots of different types of green vegetables, pumpkins, all sorts. There's actually because they can grow all year round, pretty much. It's quite a varied, different. Very, very varied fruits and vegetables and stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well, I was thinking, if you guys don't mind, I wanted to try presenting my presentation again.
Yeah.
I added a few different slides, and then I want to keep it under 10 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to try that. Let me just try to maximize this. Okay, you guys can see it?
Yes. Big now.
Okay, all right. So, greetings in the love and light of the One Infinite Creator. I am Andre, and I'm doing a presentation on peak oil and rural transition. Rystad Energy has some of the most detailed and best information on the current oil reserves, and they have found that we have declined by half a year's worth of consumption in proven reserves and 1.5 years of consumption in probable reserves, and we have about 8.5 years remaining. We've known this for a long time. Hubert predicted it in the 60s, but he underestimated how much we would get in total. However, the curves are otherwise on track from multiple sources. and we can expect to be bottoming out sometime between the 2030s. A good example is the Albertan oil fields, which peaked at 1998. And even though we tried to make more and more wells, so here's 1998, and we made lots and lots of wells, but we were not able to make production go any higher. And that's because there's just a limited amount of oil there. U.S. shale produces some of the most, and but as you can see, the decline is getting faster. So here's the one from 2021, and here's from 2022. You see, so they're declining faster than the some of the earlier wells. Though some of these earlier wells, they did not produce as much. However, we should still be getting shale for quite a while, at least at reduced rates, 5 to 10%. And in terms of the price of oil, some people say, well, the price of oil will go up and then other things will become economical. But the price of oil is actually dictated by the money supply. And when there's inflation, because of a lack of surplus energy, then governments raise interest rates, which reduces the money supply, which reduces how much money people can spend on the oil. And so we've actually had, for a long time, for the last 150 years or so, our food prices have been decreasing because of increasing amount of energy. However, since about 2015, food prices and severe food insecurity worldwide have been rising. That indicates that we reached net energy peak around 2015. All right. And then, so there's multiple future projections of how much oil we will have in the future. And we have natural gas liquids as crude and condensate. Though some speculate, such as John Peach, that we will have a sharp decline or a Seneca cliff. Because we started with lots of large fields and we have a few small fields, but our technology has gotten much better. We can pump them out very fast. And unfortunately, we do not have enough minerals to do the green transition, and it would take hundreds to tens of thousands of years to mine enough minerals to do the transition, but we only have around 8 to 16 years left. So we are currently in scarcity industrialism. EU is a good example. They're ahead of the curve. They've lost over 55,000 companies, including several major ones in 2023. Most heavy industry has shut off, and medium industry is shutting down as well. And in Canada, people can't afford housing and are living in tents, but also in the US and Europe and many other places. So EROI basics. Basically, this is about how much energy you get out of pumping oil, and 14 was enough to pay for arts, and in about the 90s is when we canceled our art programs. And EROI 12 was enough to pay for healthcare, and in the 2010s we had fairly decent healthcare, but now there seems to be global issues with the healthcare issue. So that indicates our EROI, or the net energy that we're getting out of our fossil fuels, has dropped below 12. And then the schooling system, maybe we may lose that in the present decade, and enough to pay for truck drivers and farmers, we may lose that in the upcoming decade. And unfortunately, renewables do not have sufficient EROI to allow for, say, paying truck drivers and things like that. And the coal and things like that actually have a declining EROI as we have fewer resources available. It becomes more difficult to get them. So where we headed is the salvage economy. After most of the fossil fuels are out, most of the energy will be in the remaining structures. And so we can expect people to be salvaging the structures in order to, say, take some of the metals or the rebar and take it to the rural areas where they can be made into tools and implements. And so the lifestyles that we know are viable are like the Amish and the Mennonites. It's estimated their life expectancy of doing this is about 56, because it's a lot of hard work. Now, there's also up north in Ontario or the wilderness, you could live to be about 70 by having a hunting gathering lifestyle, just because it takes less effort. But there's even better option of it's kind of a hybrid between the Amish and the indigenous, and that is the New Age Sylvan lifestyle, where you grow food forests and you have a spiritual community based on forgiveness, love, and kindness for each other, just like the Amish. So that way you have group cohesion and you have food supply that's even closer to you with about as much effort as the hunter-gatherers. And they're projected to live 89 years plus. And so in terms of how much energy can we have? So a church of 60 could support equine or bovine transport, because a cow needs about as much as a human in terms of land. A village of 360 could support a biogas vehicle. A neighborhood could have market stores and maybe a biogasoline production. A city could have a thorium reactor and industrial production. And a county could have a countywide radio, internet, and rail for connectivity. Now, this is an example of a family homestead. And so in South Ontario, 1 to 2 hectares per capita is sufficient. A family would need 6 to 12 hectares. And if we look at the global projections, it's about 5 to 10 hectares is the optimal size. And so there's the church and the village and the neighborhood and the city and county. And then recommended policies would be to allow more crown landing and allow waterway accessible lots. So for the county, that would be pertinent to our conservation area zoning. And then recommended policies would be a Land Protection Act to make it possible for small families to buy land in Ontario right now, instead of them being hoarded by corporations. And we could allow for various sustainable living practices, including rainwater collection, and set maximum family lot sizes to be 10 to 20 hectare range. It kind of depending on how many people live there, and have an offset so that you can have hedges from the roads. This to reduce the amount of crime, because we're seeing an increase in rural crime. And supporting county radio, fiber optic, and rail, encouraging sustainable rural homesteads and orchards. And then for the municipal level, they could set a minimum lot size of a hectare per person, and affordable housing, allowing temporary housing permits, and community development plans, encouraging formations, churches. And how am I helping? I email the county every week, and have an IT business, and I've here for consultation. And now it's a discussion period. All right. I think I managed to fit in 10 minutes. Great. What'd you guys think?
Good. I thought that was really good. Yeah, it was a good rounded introduction. Had the body and had the conclusion, which is the mitigation strategies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks.
I think it's really good because you could expand it if you wanted. Like you could talk to people. Maybe do it 10 or 15 minutes, and then ask for questions, and people would really have a little background as to what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just in the here in Ontario County, there's like a maximum limit. Like you cannot have a presentation more than 10 minutes, and then that's kind of to respect the counselor's time. And then if they want to, they can ask questions. And the question period is flexible. It's up to kind of when the counselors feel like stop talking, but it could be half an hour.
Yeah. Well, they did a study, and they found out, believe it or not, most people talking, you don't listen to them very much. People, just in general, don't listen after 8 minutes. 8 minutes is pretty much it. That's what you get for undivided attention span for most people.
Yeah, when I was selling my product and looking into different marketing options, I read up a lot about attention spans, and if you don't get somebody in the first couple of seconds, then you're done. And generally speaking, a minute is what they'll give you, but if you expand it off, then it has to be it has to grab their attention,
For sure.
Yeah, pretty punchy.
Yeah, I mean, this is that 10 minutes. So it's very, very difficult to get this kind of information into short periods of time. I've tried to simplify some of some stuff before, and it's so difficult to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started showing up at the county like a year and a half ago, last August, not this August, but preceding August, because there were going to be like elections, and I was so I kind of got curious, and then I started attending them, and I was going to do a delegation, but it was just like, how do you explain it to them in 10 minutes? And then I was talking to some of the staff there, and they recommended like sending emails, because those are like one of the few things I could do regularly, as much as I want, basically. And so I send them a weekly email, as I mentioned in this slide over here. And that way, kind of, at least the ones that read the emails, they should kind of more or less know what I'm already talking about. And so they may have some relevant statements on it. No, I just wanted to mention we got YouTube. Cow Eats Man says we cannot replace, so we must reduce. A green economy is possible, just not this one, not one which grows. I would agree with that statement. Definitely, we'd have to have massive reductions in terms of overall energy. Though I think that the one that I've described is possible, where you have like one animal for a church, and one or two animals for a church, and like a biogas facility, one car for a village, and a neighborhood. One thorium plant for a city, because really we have limited amounts of uranium and thorium, and we need it to last for as long as we intend to live on this earth, which could be 100 million years or something like that, ideally. Go ahead.
Can I just say, one of the things I'm looking to do in the future is to take a wheat field, or a traditional field in England that's been used for wheat or rape or barley or whatever it is, and then turning that into habitat, and then also to inject like food forest and growing vegetables, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Even a small piece of grazing land within that patch. That will grow in abundance if you get it right. So I think we need a degrowth is quite important, although very difficult to talk about. Scaling is the problem. So descaling has to be the fix, right? And then producing lots of abundant nature and food is also a fix, in my opinion. I mean, they're two keys. I mean, to reduce and then to grow an abundance in nature. It's not rocket science at the end of the day, is it?
Mm-hmm. I know in the UK, the popular movement, just like what you're talking about, is called rewilding. And there's a bunch of examples of rewilding in the UK. That's just kind of what they call it. But I know some they have like pigs and all these other things. They basically they had some land that was completely useless for agriculture because they had been cropping it for so long. It had depleted all the nutrients, and so they decided to rewild it and got like the native animals like the pigs and things like that to come back there and till the soil and add the nutrients, and they grew a forest and they have lots of butterflies, and so it is possible, and it
Yeah.
has been done. Cool. Yeah. Dune, you had your hand up, but I see you're kind of missing now.
Yeah, I'd a couple of things. Getting back to this concept of people's attention span, and also the fact is that trying to actually convince somebody something they don't really want to hear, it's pretty well impossible. Like, we're in a predicament, and the only way out of this predicament is for people to actually recognize it themselves. And they're not going to recognize it by being told about it. They're only going to recognize it when it affects them so severely that they're going to say, "Oh shit, I got to change." I've actually given up trying to convince people of needing to change. I think the only answer really is to just do it yourself and be the example. Let them observe you and let them make up their own mind. So on that basis, I've been battling with trying to get a community established where we're doing all these things, and where we've got an area of about 20 acres that had corn growing on it in the 1970s, and we're trying to turn that into a food forest. And it takes with really hard labour and lots of work and good conditions. It might take 5 years for that food forest to actually get to the point where it's productive enough to be doing the kind of food that you're going to need. So we're in a bind here because it's going to take a long while for these. I totally agree with your Sylvan agriculture type process for the future. Because it takes so long to actually create it, and there's going to be a period where there's going to be hunger and not going to be easy. So even here where we've got 20 adults in our community, and it's hard to get them to go to work communally. Like they're too busy looking after themselves, trying to establish their own things. So, for us to get that food forest up and running and productive in 5 years' time, it's even a battle here. So we're all in a bind.
I have a few comments on that, and one of them is that for permaculture food forests, the typical strategy is interplanting. So you would plant the trees, and then between the rows of trees, you could plant your crops. Or for an example, in this example, you would grow your crops in the middle, and then your food forest, and then your wood crops. But this is just one example of concentric growing circles, and like this makes sense if, say, you have your village in the center, and then you have your so you can have your gardens and your annuals, which need a lot of care. Annuals take a lot of input, effort, and so you have them close to your community, and then afterwards you have your food forest, which requires less, and then then you have your nut forest, and which requires less, and then you have your wood coppices, and then you have your thorny border, which will keep out other animals as well as humans.
Yeah. I'd also just I just went over. I turned my video off to go and get a book called Restoration Agriculture by Mark Shepherd. You probably may or may not have heard of it, but it's basically creating a food forest in temperate and coolish conditions. I think the guy lives in Wisconsin, and yeah, his books are I could really
Mark
recommend.
Shepherd.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would like everyone to know that where he lives, there is a meter of rain.
Oh, okay.
So you do not have a meter of rain. You may need to adjust how you do things because some, like a lot of his things are kind of wasteful to water, I would say. Though he has some good things like swales as well, which are good for water, but so some of his animal agriculture stuff just you'd have to think twice about it because he lives on a mountainside, and the mountains are what's attracting a lot of the rain there. However, you need trees in most places to attract rain. So, but yeah, he makes an effort, and he does have some tree stuff as well.
Yeah, where we are, we get about 1,100 millimeters a year, so a bit over a meter, and we're more subtropical than temperate. So yeah, and we've got mountains around us covered in rainforest. We've got World Heritage rainforest immediately on our border, basically in the mountain above us. Yeah, so you obviously got to adjust your processes related to your climate and soil and sort of wind directions and protections. And yeah, there's a lot to learn, and permaculture allows us to try and sort those kind of issues out for our local, for your local area, wherever you're trying to create something similar.
And I had an go ahead, Leon. You're muted. Okay.
I'm doing a permaculture design course at Oregon State University at the moment. It's structured really well. It's done in modules, and you work through the modules and you build up this design of the site that you're doing, and full of superb tutorials and information videos. Really, really good. I'll give you the link later. You can put it in the.
You could tell me, and then I could show it up on the screen. What was it called?
Oregon State University Permaculture Design Pro.
University Permaculture Design Course. There we go. Is this it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's what it looks like.
I think it's Andrew Mollison is the main guy.
Oh yeah, I know him. Well, I mean, I think I've read some of his books.
I think Nate Hagens may have interviewed him as well. Maybe.
There was a famous Mollison in Australia that was into permaculture.
Oh, Bill Mollison invented it, didn't he? That's not Mollison. I'm not sure of his second name.
Millicent.
Oh, it's Militant. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Nate did have a thing on him.
Yeah, cool. Bill Mollison was credited with creating the term permaculture, but of course, a lot of that kind of stuff was going on well before his time.
Yeah. He was a great character. I've watched some of YouTube videos. Funny guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
went along with David Holgram, the two of them together.
So this permaculture course is well worth looking at. I think it's about $1,000, which I don't think is excessive for the amount of information you get and what benefits you can get from it. There's also scholarships available. So yeah, well worth any
10
of.
weeks.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a 10-week course and a 20-week course. So the 10-week course is more for your maybe your own personal garden or something like that. And then the 20-week course is extensive and goes into the whole design frame that you would give a client if they wanted their piece of land developed into permaculture. You from the pro version 20-week, you gain the information you need to be able to create that.
Okay, cool. So I got a few mentions here from Nadia. Food prices are plausibly also very affected by factors like soil degradation, climate drought, etc. That is also true, but I think that would also kind of fit with the net energy in terms of we don't have the energy to fix those issues anymore. Like a lot of our agriculture is based on using petroleum products to add huge amounts of nutrients to completely depleted dirt instead of working on improving the soil year after year with like permaculture and organic practices. And also Scott Harding says, I love the Sylvan community idea. I also like that this is not an algorithm for producing utopia. There's enough flexibility for different people to live in the way that makes the most sense to them. That's true as well. One of the things that I like to promote is holacracy. And I have holacracy over here. And basically, the idea is like holacracy, you can look it up. There's a Holacracy Institute or something. But I have it adapted to Anabaptists because they are the most likely to survive. Like the Amish and the Mennonites are considered some of the highest probability. And so instead of the governance meetings, I have it as stewardship meetings. Uh, Stewardship meetings, and so basically once a month you would get together and discuss your roles, the roles that you have in your community, and then express tensions like, oh, I need more help, or or I feel like I'm not doing anything, something like that. And then your roles could be adjusted with feedback from the other people. And the idea is that it's not like you're appointed, but rather that you select yourself and you decide whether you're going to continue the role or not. That way people are not being promoted to the point where they become inept, but to they promote themselves to the point where they feel like they're best of service to others. And then there's also service meetings, which could be like weekly, where they which is where you get together with other people doing the same thing and being like, okay, well, let's do this, and have feedback. And then I actually have a recent document that I made about Anabaptist colonies, basically. So right now in Ontario, we have very high land prices because corporations are buying up all of our land and leaving nothing for regular people. So most regular, I think the bottom 92 to 95% of people of income earners cannot afford a mortgage, an average mortgage. So, but what we could do is we can make like the Hutterites and form a group where we pool our resources together to buy enough land and then set up a food forest community on it. Leon?
Yeah, that's precisely the type of thing that I'm thinking about. A lot of the land around my local hometown is banked, essentially. So, I've been looking at the different types of land that's available at prices and things like that. And the price is crazy. Now, I don't know whether those prices will go down and then go back, and then land itself go back up as a what am I trying to say? like an investment for the future when people realise that it's land that they need. If you get my drift,
Mm-hmm.
do you understand what I'm trying to say? So, uh,
Yeah.
so I'd like to buy a piece of land now, but I can't. I haven't got enough money,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm going to have to crowdfund. Speak to people who are wealthy, and perhaps speak to them about entropy and about peak oil, and 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 say that we can make this land productive in a number of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do
You're
you have
talking about land in the UK, are you, Leon?
Say again.
This is land in the UK, not in China.
Yeah, land in the UK. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Just you know, UK is very far above carrying capacity, right?
no, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and so China is actually less densely populated than the UK. Yeah.
I think I keep going back to the UK because my family are there, my friends are there, um, and obviously I care about them and
Mm-hmm.
want to try and help them or do something to help them or
Mm-hmm.
help them realise, help them see.
Mm-hmm.
But also, my daughters, they want to go back to the UK. So
I see.
it's not definite that I'll go back to the UK and do it. Maybe I will do it here, but
So
you know,
I'm wondering how far is the place you're thinking of in the UK from the main cities?
not more than 100 miles.
Oh, okay, not 100. Well, kilometers. I don't know. Here.
Yeah,
How about? Can you tell me like the place name?
so if you bring up
Oh,
local town, Romsey Town.
sorry, it just cut out just when you were saying the name.
Romsey Town, Romsey.
Romsey, UK.
Yeah.
Okay, Romsey, UK. Great.
Yeah.
And I see Southampton looks pretty big.
Yeah, Southampton's
Or is it not too bad?
400,000, 350,000 people.
350,000 people. Okay. Well, that is too big. Oh, and London's right over there, eh?
not far from the ocean though? That's good.
Yeah.
And navigable waterways.
Yeah, I mean, so there are some benefits, but yeah, it's a tough spot. I usually, for anyone in Europe, I recommend going to Ireland because Ireland has got some of the best locations. And I know some people wanted me to talk about Ireland in the comments. And basically, what's really nice about Ireland is that it's an island, and it's very low population density, and it generally has fairly good soils. You can grow hazelnuts really well, and chestnuts, and things like that. I think the soils are alkaline, but another thing is that it has shore walls. Here, I don't know if we can see it, but there's most of the shores are very steep, and so you don't have to worry in most places about like sea pirates or whatever coming to raid you, because it's just so difficult. Because
Except the Vikings.
well, you see, the thing is that since the time of the Vikings, the Ireland has actually risen, because it rises a little bit every year, and it's been centuries since then. Because it's a bounce back effect from when it was being compressed by the glaciers. Yeah.
Same thing with Scandinavia. But yeah, I think I used to tell my students, and I don't know if any of them paid attention to it. I said, if you're young, buy the most cut over woodlot you can find in Maine. I mean, because in Maine, the cash crop has always been wood. And so, it's sort of like Scandinavia, get the most cut over woodlot you can get. And the beauty is you have the advantage of time. You have 30, 40 years to cut out things and end up with a decent woodlot, I mean, and that's what we did. We bought sort of cut over woodlot, but it had enough maples to enable maple syrup production for the 20 years we were there, and continue on for the rest of time, really. I mean, depending on weather. And it's basically a food forest. And we had edible mushrooms and all sorts of other things, ginseng, different things that we planted there. And I guess you could have planted things like hazelnuts and different things, but the amazing thing was it was a useful farm for regular people. In other words, we were able to cut our
Live
firewood year.
streaming has stopped.
Oh, just hold on a second here. I gotta switch to my backup streamer because the other one wasn't pulling through. Hopefully it will pull through now. Because it seems like we froze at some point when we were still looking at the introduction. Oh boy, that was a while ago.
We're not really streaming.
Yeah, I don't know. It says excellent connection now, so maybe we are streaming now again.
We're good now, huh?
Yeah.
But I was going to say, if you can find a piece of cut over woodlot, or I guess the thing might be in Ireland or someplace, to find a really kind of weird old farm or something, and get it while you have the years to put the work in to improve the soil and to make things work. I think that's the difference if you have the time to do it.
Yeah. And to that, it's like young people have lots of energy and lots of ability, but they don't have much money. And older people have lots of money. And so what you really need is a community where they all come together. And that's what I've actually found at this Anabaptist church that I go to. And it's is that it has really great community. Where you've got multiple generations, you've got great-grandparents, grandparents, the parents, and their children, all going to the same church. And it's a very kind of like flat thing, hierarchy. Like there's no real hierarchy. There is like a bishop and a pastors and things like that, but they just kind of perform a role, and they're very kind of humble and meek about it. And so and then the Anabaptists are the only denomination of Christians that I know about that focus on not just following Jesus, but becoming like Jesus. That helps because some denominations, like the Protestant denominations, they're like, oh, he died for your sins, so that means you can do whatever you want. But the Anabaptists are like, he showed us the way to live to inherit the kingdom. And so we have to live that way if we want to. And so the Anabaptists have actually been the most successful in forming intentional communities. Like I've read a lot of books on intentional communities, and unfortunately it seems that secular communities just don't work. They form and then they collapse. Because they don't have anything to hold them together. They don't have like a glue. And but the Anabaptist communities, they have that glue to hold them together. And then we actually have the Hutterites, and the Hutterites they form these colonies. So I don't know if there's images of the Hutterite colony. But basically they buy hundreds or thousands of acres, and then they build all of their buildings, and everything is kind of communally owned. Yeah. And they all work together on it. And so I was thinking, my Mennonites, they don't really follow that colony procedure, but I was thinking they could. And so I made this pamphlet on making a colony, and then I also provided like the Hutterites. So when they reach a certain size, 100 to 150. So for instance, our church, our Mennonite church, it's 128 members right now. So it's in that range. It's in 100 to 150. And they've actually had issues where I think they were closer to 150 and some group just left. It's just because the group size, it just gets unstable once it gets very large. It's kind of like radioactive atoms that they get unstable. I think gold is 187, and then beyond that, it's lead and everything else is radioactive. But you also have some radioactive isotopes below that, I think. Anyways, so they divide and form new colonies, and this division is not just a physical separation, but also sharing of resources, knowledge, and people. And so they just make sure everything's balanced, like each colony has everything that they need for success. And this is also something Dune could think about. And so there's like initial roles. So the Hutterite has departments. So they got like the spiritual leadership, they got a colony manager overseer for the day-to-day operations, got agricultural managers and workers because you need the food, right? And so you have dedicated people that are responsible for each of these things. And then you got education, and kitchen and food services, so some females might be interested in these kinds of roles. Craftsmen and artisans, there might be males and females. Like a lot of the money that the Hutterites make is actually from making furniture, just like the Amish, because they make furniture for themselves, and then other people are like, hey, we like that furniture. And I know there was even some kerfuffle over the fact that at some point they were making so much of this furniture they started buying cheaper material to make cheaper products for the regular people, but they would use high quality materials for themselves. So I think they just decided to make it more clear. It's like, you want the high end version, you're gonna have to pay more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, so
and then there's community healthcare providers, manufacturing and industrial workers. They'll include machine operators, mechanic technicians, administrative and finance, maintenance and infrastructure, youth and elder care. That's another thing that, like, this particularly could interest some older people who are interested in community and they have lots of money. And it's like, there's elder care. You don't have to go to a home where you're surrounded by a bunch of seniors. You could live in a community where there's children and grandchildren and like happy, life, new life happening all the time, and you could share your wisdom with them. A lot of elderly people, I think, could go for something like that. And transportation and logistics, and it's someone to manage that. And then there's I made an alternative way of doing it, which is kind of more on the New Age Sylvan track. And so here we got a farmer handling crops, animal care, energy worker maintaining solar, wind, hydro, and biofuels, and builder for construction and maintenance of buildings, water and waste manager, smith and toolmaker, woodland keeper for the forests and managing the timber, animal caretaker, tech communications, IT professional, vehicle machine keeper, a peace leader. But also I decided to make for women roles, like health helper, teacher, food manager, because there's communal dining in the New Age Sylvan thing. And then there's herbalists growing and using medicinal plants, because there's lots of medicinal plants, but it's like I try to do all of these things, but you can't do all of these things yourself. You just don't have the time, the energy, and the attention. Yeah, Leon?
I think these roles are extremely important in communities, and everybody will have their own passion about doing something. And I mean, people can do the thing that they want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
You say when someone wants to be, I'm a teacher. Well, do you like your job? Well, yeah, it's okay. Is it what you want to do? No, it's not what I want to do. Right. So
that's why you have the stewardship meetings.
Right. So, I mean, if you were to find the role in the community that you truly, truly love doing day in, day out, then not only do you find the thing that you love doing, but you find your purpose. I used to think that my purpose was to try and scale my product and earn millions of pounds. That was my purpose. No, because I think purpose is intimately linked with land. To be quite honest with you, I think it's purpose is intimately linked with nature, everybody's individual purpose. So yeah, I really like, I love like the role side of things in communities, because it's just, the list just goes on and on and on and on and on, right? And Andre, you're stepping on dangerous grounds, splitting it into men's jobs and women's jobs.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
actually
go
Ah,
ahead, Min.
completely in line with the Mennonite way and the Anabaptist way of doing things, because
listen,
yeah,
sorry, can I just interrupt? I
go ahead.
understand.
Yeah,
Actually, I mean, look, in nature, there are, I'm not nurturing like a woman in my nature. I am more aggressive, destructive, perhaps, and in nature. Women, I think, are more naturally nurturing, more caring, and they bring babies in into the world through their womb,
and then
and
they
I think
care
that
about them afterwards.
and they care. Yeah, so I think that actually, this splitting of or merging of sex roles in society is crazy. If the woman's feels more masculine and more destructive, then she can become a brickie, right? No problem. So yeah, but anyway, like yeah, it's great. I think it's all
Hmm.
these roles can be very, very exciting for people actually.
Hmm.
They do kind of form naturally anyway. So you
Yeah,
don't need to actually say, well, what roles do we need here? Somebody's going to do what is good, and yeah, we have that. We have
Hmm.
everyone's somewhat different, and they choose the role that they like. Yeah.
good.
But yeah.
How did you get started,
Hmm.
Dawn?
Oh, it's a complicated story, but I tried in my career to get into renewable energy and save the world, sort of thing. And when that didn't work, um, it was. But I always lived in nature, so it was a combination of finding a place initially. Originally, it was with my family and my children, but later I thought that that's not going to work just by yourself. But I did want to be out in nature, quite a long way from the city, thinking that I could sustainably grow all my own food as a family in a place that had the right kind of conditions to do that. But yeah, you need lots of people, but not too many people. And you mentioned 100 to 150. Well, this is the famous Dunbar's number
Hmm.
that we all understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing about land, though, is yeah, people are advocating, people are concerned about whether they're going to put their money in gold or cryptocurrency and keep it away from the fiat currency. Well, land is the place where you want to put your money. Yeah,
Absolutely.
don't have any like they're talking about digital currency now, and eventually cash will no longer exist. Well, land is the place to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally agree.
Hmm. And like I think there is definitely a place of kind of more formal roles in, because like we have lots of examples in nature, like say for instance the cell, it's got organelles, and all the organelles have different functions. Like there's the nucleus, contains genetic material, and so there's the librarian managing books, resources, and community records, and then you got the nucleolus, which is like copying those books and creating them, and you got the IT guy who's like working with the printers and stuff like that. So you basically you have like all of the things are needed, like the mitochondria powerhouse of the cell. That would be like the energy worker that's managing solar and wind and things like that. And so you want to have a complete set of them, and then if you say have those stewardship meetings, and like you said, people are already doing them, But if they have, say, those stewardship meetings where they get officially assigned that, they could have some recognition for what they do, and then, people would be like, well, you're not just here, lazing about. You're our, gardener or beekeeper or event organizer. You have a function, and you help out in the community. And hey, that was a great event you organized, and things like that. You know. And so I think it can work, and it certainly would take some practice. But yeah, I could send you over the documents too. Leon?
The other problem that you might find, or we might find, is that I listened to the new Argentinian prime minister do a speech at the World Economic Forum, and I was disgusted by it, to be quite honest with you. And he was very, very articulate about his views on socialism, and this type of thing that we're talking about here does start to knock into socialism, right?
Oh, Milei with, oh, socialism. Yeah, no, it's you see, there's actually a lot of disinformation about what socialism is.
But I understand that, but people's if you give this plan to somebody, that they would turn around to you and say, you're a socialist."
People,
9 times out of 10, right? So what I'm saying is, it could be dangerous to
this
to
is
create,
the presentation you're talking about, right?
Yep. And did you see what they said about it? They said, "Viva la libertad, carajo." In other words, let's live. He's all talking about liberty and stuff, and they're saying it's a bunch of crap.
Oh, I see. Well,
not once did he mention energy. Not once did he mention energy. In fact, he said his words were, no matter what resources you have, whether you don't or do, then a free market will build you and you will grow.
Yeah,
like it's absolutely insane.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
the Argentina to become to use the US dollar as well, I think.
Yeah.
That's the old idea that neoliberalism is going to help. And what it does, it basically helps big corporations to extract a bunch of stuff, especially out of a country like Argentina, or really the whole world. And I think I think the way to do it now is you're going to get to fly under the radar, because otherwise giant corporations will come in and grab whatever you have. That's just the way they play. Because a corporation is much longer than a human, so they can play the game. So I think the thing to do is to get to a place where you're not noticed by these big people somehow. I don't know where that is, but I have a few ideas. I know I do business on a very small island, and it's nice to be in a place where you can actually function without getting squashed by the big boys.
Yeah, you made a good point there that I was going to bring up, is that Milei was just promoting neoliberalism. That's all he was doing. And we've been doing neoliberalism since the 90s. And what is neoliberalism? It's liberalism was about freedom for everybody, that people should be free to do what they want. Neoliberalism is that the rich should be free to do what they want. Just the rich. And so that's what he was promoting. That's what we've been doing since the 90s, and that's where we are now.
Well, it's clear to me that he wants investment in Argentina, and that's what it was directed towards, and that was it. That's it in a nutshell.
From the rich.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just sick, to be honest with you.
He's speaking to the World Economic Forum, so he's speaking to the very people that are basically, neoliberalism and stuff. I mean, the idea is that, he's kind of like convincing everybody. He's telling them what they want to hear, is that everybody can, everybody who embraces their gospel can be rich. But it hasn't worked out so well for Argentina for a very long time. And this time it might, but, I lived in a Latin American country, and it was,
I don't think it will.
I don't think so.
No,
No.
because the one thing that might be happening in Argentina is there's a good chance that they may be able to frack Argentina, and so this could be the World Economic Forum way of sort of like introducing this guy. He's all fun, and then they're going to frack the hell out of it, and they're going to get some oil, just like they did out of the U.S. So the idea is to kind of like let's let's introduce a new person into the kind of the world uh, resource game. You
Right.
know,
Uh, I had a question about fracking actually, in regards to the rest of the world, and we know that America fracks, of course, but the UK attempted this and failed miserably. Also,
yeah,
were beaten off it by the public actually, a public outcry in regards to it, which was good to see. But around the world, fracking must already exist. Surely, I would have thought.
sure. I mean,
Um,
it's a way that people have made oil come out for a long time. In fact, the places that they're fracking, if you look at them, most of them are places that were a traditional oil play, like Western New York, where I used to live. They are fracking it, and the thing about it was a big place in the 1880s or something for oil. You know, Quaker State Oil, all that stuff, Western Pennsylvania, and so it became a big deal. And then now they're fracked. Then they fracked stuff out in Wyoming and different places. So they're moving on to all the different places that already were um, oil plays. So you have to kind of there has to be something there to begin with. So I think they're going to find, like you said, Vaca Muerta. That could be like
it,
Permian or something.
it would make sense that they're looking for investment from the World Economic Forum, because fracking is so expensive, right?
Yeah, it's insane.
It needs huge amounts of investment.
Yeah, I'd like to come in here. Yeah, people have tried to frack in the same way as they're doing in Texas and in the Bakken, but it's even in the best place in the world, which seems to be the Permian in Texas. It's really pretty poor in terms of economics and net energy. And the only reason why it's done so well in the US is because there's money behind it to keep it going.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
in the US, in the decade um, of fracking that's sort of made the US the world's largest oil producer, they've lost $300 billion. The companies that are working on this, and it's being supported by government handouts and subsidies and so you try and do that in Argentina, it's just not going to work because
Yeah.
it only just works by trickery in the US.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
we
Not
Very
only
good.
that,
It's true. It's
it only
subsidized. They've lost $330 billion on it already.
yeah, and
yeah,
we
it
have
only works for light crude, which is not really useful. That idea of uh, light crude being the shopping fuel and diesel's just not in the presence of these shale plays. It's
yeah.
too heavy.
Yeah, also, I wanted to bring up the fact that the CEO of Occidental Petroleum told the World Economic Forum that 2025 is going to be when oil runs short. And I mean, nobody really paid attention to it, but she said, we are in big trouble as of 2025. And I'm sure that those people really paid attention and they're all going to try to, like, I don't know, scuttle for their bunkers or something, but, just telling them more or less what's happening.
Is it true that Mark Zuckerberg is building a bunker in Hawaii? Is that
Hawaii,
true?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
true.
definitely.
It is true, is it?
Yeah, he's also got thousands. I don't know, like at least hundreds of acres of macadamia nuts, which
Yeah,
trees, which he's feeding to his cows as their source of food. He says that he needs for one cow, he needs to feed them 10,000 pounds of macadamia nuts a year. And then he's also, instead of giving them water, he's giving them beer.
What?
Beer that he makes on site.
Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, no, serious.
Really?
Serious. Yeah. Yeah. His cows are
More nutritious.
like better fed than, most Africans.
Is no one coming out and questioning him and saying, like, what are you up to? Why
He's rich,
Has he
and
come out?
we're in a neoliberal world where the rich get to do whatever
Yeah.
they want.
Yeah. I mean,
So
we what do you call it? My wife went on a tour of the of agriculture, and she went to a very rich person's farm off the coast of Maine, which is on an island off the coast of Maine. And they have everything. They have all new tractors. They have, like, some guy is a uh, you know farm manager. Everybody's having a great time there, but I mean, it doesn't make sense economically. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to produce Wagyu beef or something.
So, Dan A says Art Berman was on Nate Hagen's podcast recently, said that fracking didn't work in Poland, and that we have tried all the fields where the shale is similar to what works in the USA. And I'd like to also bring the point that, some people were telling me the Green River Formation, because there's shale there, but it's very immature. The organic matter in this formation hasn't been subjected to enough heat and pressure to convert to crude oil, making it much more energy intensive to extract usable hydrocarbons. So we just can't use it. Like maybe in 100 million years, or like 10, I don't know, tens of millions of years, it will be mature. And the Permian Basin is considered very mature, and we're losing money on that. And then the Vaca Muerta shale is less mature. It's somewhere between Green River and Permian, so it's less mature than the Permian.
Yeah, they were saying that there really aren't very many good shale plays. I mean, fracking plays in the world after this. I mean, after you've spent, like we had the, the reserve currency. So you can play games with the reserve currency when you have that. But, just like, England did, you can go a long time giving people this script, this is good stuff, right? And producing things that you really, just to keep the whole game going, the Romans did it. The Romans had practically useless currency toward the end of their time, and they would just push it out to the edges of the empire with force. They say, you have to take this stuff. So I think, it's a typical game toward the end of empire. You push out your nonsense script, and you make things like foolish oil or whatever it is you need.
Mm-hmm. So
It's not the right sort of oil anyway, because it's too light. Mike, I was going to ask Steve Rocco a question about how, like, Venezuela and Canada have the world's largest oil reserves, and it's all this bitumen stuff. How you can actually mix bitumen with the light shale oil and get to some sort of condition where you can create diesel and bunker fuel. Whether that's really a viable process, I hear about it being done. Like the Canadian tar sands are actually being mixed with the US light crude, and you can get diesel out in the end. But how viable is that process? I'd like to know that question.
Oh, mixing. Okay, I can ask ChatGPT, but here,
Yeah, right.
Low Eroy, Barnett Shale, Texas, Marcellus Shale is 5-1 to 10-1 Eroy. Moderate Eroy, 10-1 to 15-1 is Eagle Ford Shale and Haynesville Shale. Higher Eroy, 15-1 to 20-1, Back Information, North Dakota, and Permian Basin. And
based on the information that's been typed into the
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. A lot of other sources I've seen, they just say shale 5-1. Like,
Apart from the Permian, all of those other basins are all past their peak already.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and I think a large reason for the Permian being, usable or whatever is because they have conventional oil and gas there too. That's paying for their shale plays. That's my understanding of it, anyways. All right.
Yeah, it's somewhat similar to what they do in Canada, where to get their bitumen out, they've got gas, and they actually drill holes, horizontal wells, fairly shallow, two wells, one above the other, and they basically use gas to heat up water and pump steam into one well, and that liberates the bitumen in the other well, and it's able to get it out. So without that gas, the only other way is to where it's shallow, they bulldoze it and mine it like a
Yeah.
copper mine or a coal mine.
Yeah. And then they
I
try to
think,
get it down to the U.S. to mix with other stuff, so it looked like oil.
I think that's one of the big misconceptions of people's views on how much oil is left, because they'll say that, oh, but there's enough oil in the ground for us to use for hundreds of years. Maybe if you can extract the sand oils effectively, right? But people don't understand the differences between oil. That's why I did the sand oil video and posted it, pinned it at the top of my Facebook page, because I want people to understand that this is a large proportion of what people are saying of the amount of oil that is left. So if you take that out the equation, when the conventional oil and the fracking diminishes, how many years are left? Because it's not 47, is it? Right?
Like 8.
You know?
I'm gonna ask.
Yeah, if you take like Venezuela and Canada, actually have the world's largest oil reserves, and it's none of it's viable.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is just not common knowledge to people, and it's actually very simple to understand. So, when because people talk so blasé about oil, well, there's no problem with oil. There's no problem with oil other than the climate change that it's caused. So we need to stop using oil. But actually, if people knew and understood what oil was in its simplest form, right? You've got tar sands and you've got crude and you've got tight shale as an example, then people would then start to understand more about actually what oil we use in a day-to-day life and actually how long we think it will last, because I think it's actually pretty straightforward to predict how long it's going to last based on figures.
Well, they figure we can make it through this next year, 2024, before it starts to really drop. But then 2025, it actually starts to drop. That's what they're saying. And the thing about it is that is a nightmare for most people. I love them on the morning news. They were saying, "Oh my God, it's getting expensive to fly." And I was thinking, this tiny percentage of people that fly around all the time, that all of a sudden it's become a big problem. They're like, "Oh my God, there's a big problem in the world. It's getting expensive for us to just flap around and do nothing," But I mean, they don't get it. They don't understand this, and there's a big giant media kind of a hype to keep you from understanding what's going on. And I don't think it's going to go away, even as things start to fall apart. I can't see it falling. I can't see it continuing.
No.
So I've got a question here or a statement from Dan A, who says, one thing I would add to your farming system is a small tractor like the Farmall Cub converted to electric 4-kilowatt motor wood gasification. And so in response to that, so this is the Farmall Cub tractor, and I asked ChatGPT, and it uses on average 2 to 3 gallons or 7.5 to 11.5 liters of gasoline per hour. Now, you have to take this into context. How much energy are we going to have? So if you have a wood coppice here, so this will produce if you produce a whole cord. Now this is a willow coppice. This is the fastest way you could grow wood. Okay, 15 gigajoules, 1 ton of wood a year. A ton of wood a year. How much? If you were to then use the Fischer-Tropsch process, like if you were to gasify all of this, 1 ton of wood, and then you were used to Fischer-Tropsch process to make gasoline, how much do you think you would get? Well, 180 liters. 180 liters per year. That is all that you could get. And this is the wood that you also use for heating and cooking. So you're not going to use all of it for the Fischer-Tropsch process. Maybe 10%, 18 liters. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a friend, though, Andre. You should check it out. It's called John Howe's Solar Chainsaw and Other Inventions. It's on YouTube. John Howe, Howe, and what Howe, and what he did was Howe.
Howe. Okay.
Yeah, he there it is. What he did was he took a farmall cub and he put a sort of a canopy above it, and the canopy, that's his little golf cart with a electric chainsaw, which was kind of fun. We drove it out in the woods and cut some wood. But he has another farmall cub that he used to move wood around, right, in that same video. And see how it has like a canopy, which kind of keeps you cool anyway, and it charges that bank of batteries right next to him, and all sorts of things with it. Right there, he's moving a whole bunch of wood up to his from his wood lot. So I think that's a good way to go. But you need one of those little farmall cubs, the ones with the motor was kind of placed off to the side, which actually turned out to be great. I mean, that was for cultivation, so you could look down at what you're cultivating, but it also allowed for a battery bank right there next to the where the motor was, and it's an electric vehicle. He did all sorts of amazing things.
Yeah, I see it. Though
So I think that might be the way to go, because then you don't use any of your wood.
Yeah.
You don't have to gasify it or do something weird with it either.
Yeah. Oh well, but then you definitely need the solar panels and electricity.
Solar panels.
Yeah.
And you're using lead acid batteries, which are endlessly recyclable. So that's what we realized is, you're not using lithium, you're using this lead acids, and you can.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly possible. It, and I mean, people that want to do it can. I have found that tractors and permaculture are not compatible because tractors need a huge amount of space. They need really wide lanes. They need flat land, whereas permaculture is much more variable. You have much tighter spaces, and you can have variable terrain. And it's actually better to have variable terrain because then you have swales and microclimates, and that allows you to increase your biodiversity and things like that.
Leon? The more self-reliant you are away from technology or systems that you feed from, then the higher chance of your security in the future, I think. I mean, if you've got if you're I mean, I'm in the hands of the supermarkets right now, right? I mean, I'm not actually here. There's quite a few people growing food locally. So, but generally speaking, in the UK, I'm at the hands of the supermarkets. So, if they can't produce, become non-viable, then what do I do?
Right.
If manufactured products, if you need manufactured products from outside to bring in to fix something, and they're non-viable and they're not in business, what do I do? Whereas if I've got if I've got 20 people like Dune and 20 hoes, I can do some stuff now, right? and it's unlikely to break. And actually, I can renew it as well because we can chop some hazel back and we can make some more handles. So
Well,
it's
yeah, I'm more like,
simplification.
I kind of think the other thing is, why not let somebody else do it? I mean, like every time we cut our woodlot, we'd have a skidder come in, and you could do it with horses also. But you don't want to keep a horse for the whole, for 20 years. You don't want to keep a horse for your one time you cut the woodlot. You want to let somebody else have the workhorse, and then they bring in the workhorse, and then they can pull some wood out. Because we were cutting, oak that was, gigantic, humongous things. So then you need the big machinery to pull it out, or workhorses or something. So I don't know. I see it as that's the kind of farming that I did, anyway.
Hmm.
But I did not need to have anything. We had a little snowmobile that we'd use to cut some wood sometimes, but we had very little. Ourselves, we had very little actual machinery that we needed.
So
I
there.
have a difficulty
Mhm.
with myself in that and I can see it with all of you guys as well. And that's talking about what am I going to do to support me and my family,
Mm.
given the difficulties of the world that's coming, when it's really what kind of system are we going to have that's going to support everyone that's here as best as possible.
Yeah.
And if food forests are sort of the things that can be developed that don't require fossil fuels, don't require tractors, and but they take quite a few years to get going. So and of course they've got to be different in different climates and different soil types, and we're in a predicament, we're in a bind, and when if it's 2025 that oil consumption has to drop across the world, when the whole capitalist system depends on increasing consumption, increasing energy use for it to exist, and now we're about to not be like that. We're going to have to go through this sort of stress conditions of where there's going to be people that just aren't going to survive, and somehow those that can work it out and see others working it out are going to be doing it for we're doing things now to try, all of us, as examples rather than for ourselves. That's the way I see it.
Don't you think it's so frustrating that we waste so much time, waste so much resources? I posted something on Facebook last night about do we really need the lights on when most people are asleep in bed? The lights are on outside your house, and when you look at the amount of lights across the world at night, it's insane. Those lights are on when everybody's asleep. So, but it's an utter waste of energy, and that energy could be inputted into creating better communities, starting to create more systems like permaculture to fight and build resilience. It's incredibly frustrating to see that it's not being done. And like you said, Dune, I think ultimately when it comes to the crunch and people really start to feel this low fuel economy hit across the middle class and upper middle, then it's going to be too late because we've not got the cheaper energy to organise into fronts where they need to be organised. Crazy.
Well, I was
Insane.
just looking on my on the computer here, and I found about 4 or 5 pieces of land for $20,000 in Maine, like old woodlots and things. And I was thinking, might not be a bad idea to find a place like that. Now I don't know where it is, but I don't think it's in the more populated parts of the world. And then it's going to become a nasty little game of musical chairs, and everybody's going to be trying to find a spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think maybe the thing to do is to start to think about some place to be. And I would go and like visit it and things and sort of get an idea for the community and get an idea what's going on. But I mean, you can probably get, from 2 to 4 acres for the price of a small car. So start to think about that. I would start to think about it anyway.
Yeah, it's good advice, I think.
Because, well, I mean, you don't know. I mean, who knows what happens in the world, but, you know, and you don't know, it might not be a place that's all that viable and things, but, you want to try to find a spot because, once 2025 comes, things start to get tougher and tougher. Oh, look, Poland's not bad.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
United States, France
No.
apparently is even cheaper.
Yeah, why is that? France is great.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you'd
France
think so.
is has large rural areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rural Italy as well.
Yeah,
look,
and
Australia. Canada.
and Canada.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about it has a complex set of land ownership with foreign land ownership.
not
British Columbia and Ontario are exclusive of these rules, where there's no restriction on foreign ownership of farmland.
Yeah, and that's why we have the highest land prices. Yeah.
Well, no price per hectare. I don't know.
Well,
I
this
think,
is price per hectare on average across Canada,
Yeah.
and so this would include Saskatchewan. Like most of the land available in Canada is in the prairies: Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba. They're the only ones that have, like more than 30% of the land actually available for sale, whereas like in British Columbia, 95% of the land is owned by the government, which is the same in like Quebec, and in Ontario, it's 87% of the land is owned by the government. So just like hoarding it, and then they give it to lumber companies to just totally decimate, and the lumber companies give them a few pennies, and then they're off to destroying the next piece of Canadian real estate.
Yeah.
What's the price per hectare in the UK?
Oh, here. Okay, so let's continue down the list. Okay, Romania, Argentina. This is the top 20 cheapest. Hungary, Western Slovakia, Bulgaria, Brazil, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. Oh, they stopped at 6. What? I don't know. This is one of those. Here, 5 cheapest places. Oh, okay. I have to go to here. And
I've looked at
Uruguay.
Bulgaria, actually. That's quite a good place to look. Bulgaria still has much of its land is still occupied by orchards and homesteads. So the infrastructure is actually already there.
Mm-hmm. South Africa, North Sweden.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, it's chilly.
Yeah.
Nigeria. Hey, that's where my relatives are from, Sweden.
Yeah. And Cameroon.
Well, I think Sweden could be cool, but I wouldn't go to Cameroon. I mean, I don't know. I've been, to a lot of these places.
I wouldn't go to Nigeria either. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people there, so that's the thing. You don't want to really go to a place with a lot of people.
Yeah. But North Sweden.
Nobody.
It's just the thing is that with the conveyor belt going down, that's an issue. But here, I wanted to address some of our YouTube questions here. So one of them was he wanted to mention there's a drive-on wood form, and they've got basics of gasification. This is mostly a hobby thing because my understanding, wood gas, it's mostly carbon monoxide, so it's extremely dangerous, and you can't really fit very much of it in it because it's not a compressed. and it's got a lot of carbon dioxide. And if you don't filter it out, it's going to destroy your engine. So be very, very careful if you do any kind of wood gas stuff. And then
I saw a pickup truck. They did that too. They had the whole sort of thing in the back where they boil it and gasify, and then that would go up into the carb. It had to be an old type of carburetor, and it was like, oh my god, like just dripping with creosote, and I don't know.
oh my gosh, yeah,
They did it. They did it in Germany. They did it in during the Second World War. They did it
people
all
get
over
desperate enough.
I'm telling you, it's a rig.
And then someone asked about the Utica Shale Basin, and
Yeah.
well, basically it's very deep and complicated, and it's they say it's promising but less developed shale play compared to the other more established basins like Marcellus, Bakken, or Permian.
Yeah, so it's just going to increase the EROI.
Yeah, reduce the ROI. Yeah.
Reduce it, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Increase the amount of energy, but yeah, reduce the ROI.
It's just
As far as gasification goes, in a warm climate, you can actually gasify human manure, and there's a guy in Brisbane I know who does this, and he runs his gas stove all year on human manure. It's pretty easy to do on a small scale.
Sometimes there are videos on WeChat from people that are throwing cigarettes down manhole covers and things, and then boom,
Bang.
Oh yeah, I saw that one. Yeah. That was in China,
it
wasn't
happens
it?
quite often. Yeah. It happens quite often, and the kids play around with it. It's bad.
Oh no. Yeah. Well, that it's actually a very good source of fuel. It's one of the most economical is biogas. Yeah. So I got this other chart, and it looks like Ireland actually has extremely expensive land, based on this
Really?
euro per hectare. Even though it has a huge amount of land and a very low population density, maybe the government is hoarding it too. I don't know why it's so expensive. But
People might have already collared onto it, of course. Ireland being a good spot.
Yeah, Lithuania seems to have the cheapest, and here in Slovakia.
Well, England looks like it's about in the middle.
England, yeah, it's not too bad. 10,000 euros per hectare, or 12,000.
There's a 2 acre spot of woodland which has been had a clearing in the middle. 400,000 they wanted for it, I think it was.
That's where you are.
That was not far from my hometown.
Yeah, that's
and the farms are like £1 million. No, it's a small farm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to live in places where you have to spend $1 million just for a farm.
But you could. The Eastleigh City Council, or Eastleigh Town Council, bought 5, something like 20 acres or 30 acres or 40 acre farm. They bought it on the basis that it was just going to be used for people to walk through, and so they're not going to do anything with it at all, and to safeguard it from being built on. That's what the council did, and which I thought was very good. But that place could be developed into permaculture, or using permaculture ideas and that type of thing. So, Andre, I think, is moving down the right path in that if you speak to your local planners or councillors, then if you've got a viable model, then they will look at it. I'm sure of it. And so I could go to the Eastleigh Council and say, look, it's on the doorstep of Southampton, in the suburbs of Southampton, so it's very close to the city. Nevertheless, there are options, I think, around speaking to local governments. And I believe in devolution.
Oh yeah. I used to work on a demonstration farm that was kind of close to New York City, about 50 miles north of New York City, and we would grow all sorts of stuff, and it was really kind of fun because we had cows, we'd milk the cow, did different things all the time, and people would come and visit, and it was a great place for people to see what was going on. So, you know,
And I'll just mention that piece of land that was 400,000, which is a piece of woodland, which you'd want to protect. Beautiful, huge beech trees, and the guy that owns it is a tree surgeon, and he also owns a piece of land next to it, and he's just
Great.
sat on it. He got kicked out of there. He had his heavy equipment was stored in on that bit of land, and the council kicked him out because he's got no planning. And then he's just like left with this, and it's just land banks. He's never going to do anything with it. I mean, you can't actually. You find it very difficult to turn it into any kind of permaculture. It's woodland that needs to be conserved, right?
yeah.
So how is it worth 400,000? You know, it's like,
Yeah, it's just you just walk in it. Yeah, if there's too many regulations and things like that, and too many people like eyeballing it, it's just not worth it. Oftentimes.
well, of course they buy it, land bank it, and then they think that in 20 years' time the government will open it up to brownfield, and then they can develop it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like what do you call it, a beech forest, you can eat there's a lot of beech nuts that fall every year. And that's called mast. And it's very good for the wildlife. The wildlife love it. They're heavy mast years, and they're like years where there isn't as much, beech nuts and oak, acorns and everything, it all sort of.
Interesting. Last year was a great year for beech nuts. It was when I visited England, a crazy amount of beech nuts. Couldn't believe it. Never seen it so covered in nuts before in my life.
Did you ever pick them out and eat them? They're pretty good.
No, because I was in the summer, so I wasn't around for the harvest time.
Yeah, but it's kind of nice. You just pick them out, and there's like something that's in that.
Oh, in the past, never have. No.
Edible. It's like edible immediately. So that's why all these creatures are after it, Like bears love it. Bears and, everything.
Why don't I know that? It's crazy that people don't know that they're not edible, right?
Right. Like, did you ever read Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower?
Yeah, I did. Well,
Yeah,
I tried to several times. I didn't get through the whole thing.
Yeah, that one, and then the Parable of the Talents. But the Parable of the Sower, the way they keep alive at the beginning of the kind of crash is they figure out a way to harvest acorns.
Yeah, they make acorn bread.
Edible,
That was traditional food of the indigenous.
Yeah.
So yeah, here's a chart on the Canadian housing prices. We're number one in terms. Our real houses pricing has tripled since the year 2000, and so U.S. and Japan are less, but Australia has more than doubled, 260% higher. Yeah. Oh, and then I also want to
go to what year?
From 2000. 2000.
Yeah, and at the other end of the scale?
2022 quarter one.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's actually it's probably shot up over here.
It's gone up again. Yeah.
Well, definitely in Canada because of all the immigration.
Yeah.
I think we've imported like at least 1 million people, maybe 1.5 million since 2022.
Yeah, we're doing silly things like that too. I think we've gone up 600,000 in the last.
And the UK are doing that as well.
Yeah.
U.S. is definitely doing it too, but I mean,
less places, officially. They're just walking across the border.
Yeah, there's places though that not much is happening,
And now,
it's also the people who are immigrating are also the rich, and so they sort of vote for the right-wing parties as a result. So it's sort of manipulation of the politics. They know that by bringing in rich people, they'll continue the current system.
Where do they bring these rich people in from?
They'll
serious? Interesting.
Well, it's all over Europe, China,
upper middle, and
upper class people from other countries.
Really? That is really interesting. And they're just moving in, and yeah,
Mm.
wow.
A lot of Chinese.
Yeah,
They
Yeah.
have to pay to get in too, of course, which is
Hmm.
huge amounts of money, tens of thousands of dollars, I think, to come into Australia now as an immigrant.
Oh wow.
I
Oh,
see.
so they're
Yeah,
making money on it. In Canada,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
just letting anybody go in, and even with their fake passport or their non-passport.
Yeah, Canada's open border basically, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a wide open border. Another thing I want to mention is that apparently the national average lowest prices. Well, this was in 2020. Was in Croatia, so they might still have
Well, arable land.
arable land. Yeah. So that's the ideal kind for growing food forests. But food forests can be grown on non-arable land as well. Minimum regional average, which apparently is in Bulgaria. So you could grow food forests on marginal soils. You just have to start with nitrogen fixers.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but Bulgaria actually is. If anybody's interested to look at it because
yeah.
It has the Russian flag.
yeah, it's already got lots of infrastructure for this type of thing.
Yeah. It looks
not
like
far from.
a lot of it is cleared already.
So we'll move
But
move to Bulgaria with you, Leon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go.
Bulgaria. Yeah. Or Croatia is over here. So, I think we should also look at the terrain because I believe this is very mountainous, all of this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Croatia has, I believe, if I remember correctly, the tallest people in the world now. It's no longer the Netherlands, it's the Croatia. And it's
Really?
the mountain people in Croatia. Yeah, and here's Bulgaria, and you got some mountains. So the mountains are where the trees are. Everything else is like desolate, uh, cropland.
Yeah, but quite often, if you look at a house, it'll come with an orchard,
Oh yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
and a good,
I
good slab of land.
I think that's in most of Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
It will come with an orchard because people need to, there were so many famines. People need reliable sources of food, and so they
The
would grow.
orchards in the UK have been destroyed pretty much, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Even my grandparents' house, which was situated in Southampton Centre, they had it sat on about an acre of land, an old house, and they had an old Victorian plum orchard in the back garden. So they had probably maybe 7 or 8 trees still from that old orchard, very old trees, and a damson, cooker, and 2 different types of normal apple trees. Uh,
Cool.
Mhm.
Gone now. I mean, they're all gone. All of
Yeah.
it gone.
It's unfortunate.
That's the thing is
You don't need them. Go to the supermarket.
right. Exactly. Like who's even picking them? Nobody's even picking them anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Fling 'em around.
a lot of people complaining about fruit trees and nut trees. They're like, oh, then I'm gonna have to clean up the fruit. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's gonna attract wild animals. I don't like wild animals.
Well, I mean, they're just nuts,
Yeah. Well, they lack nuts.
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
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 they're like nuts.
Because nuts are actually good for your brain. They've got
Oh,
healthy
no,
fats. Yeah.
all of it, that's why I kind of think you have to go to a place that's a little bit far away from Craziesville, wherever that ends up being. I don't know where that is.
Mhm.
Maine.
Everywhere. Either.
Yeah. Yeah. Maine is not necessarily away from Craziesville.
Well, it's pretty. Look, it's heavily forested.
It's the most forested state in the nation. It's over 90%.
Wow. Yeah. I know
And,
in New Brunswick, which is right next to you guys,
Yeah.
we have the government has basically given their forests away to some mega corporation that is just clear cutting it for toilet paper that they're shipping
Yep.
overseas.
Irving Corporation.
Irving.
We're like kind of a wholly owned subsidiary of them. They own a lot of northern Maine also, and it's the Irving family.
Oh, Irving Corporation. There
They
you go.
own everything in New Brunswick. So that's
Yeah,
the way
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
J.D. Irving.
It's very unfortunate.
Well, I mean, you just have to sort of like exist in between it all,
Yeah.
somehow.
Well,
And,
yeah, you gotta basically make it through the bottleneck, right? So
Yeah.
we're actually before the bottleneck, but everything is gonna get compressed, and a lot of these major landholders are not gonna be able to do anything about their huge landholdings, especially if the government's when we were covering this Eroy thing, if the food doesn't get to the cities, the governments will collapse because they're all based in the cities, and so they will no longer be able to protect people's 1,000 acres or whatever. Go ahead, Leon.
I'm going to have to go shortly, but just on that point, interestingly, China's revolution was actually a peasants' movement, and there's a lot of museums in Guangzhou about it, and they after that peasants' movement, after the revolution, they heavily invested in land distribution. And one of my friend's fathers doesn't like the Communist Party. He's not vocal about it, but
Well, because he wants to live.
he's open. Well, look, he's open. He's open to talk about it. He's not going to revolt against it, right? But he's open to talk about it. And he lost. His family lost, I think, half of their land when the communist power, the revolution took hold, and so he has that begrudgment against them. Nevertheless, he's still got 3-4 high rises which he rents out to people, so he's doing all right.
Yeah,
but
that sounds like he's doing really well. Yeah.
So
my family lost.
Interesting. Yeah. What my point is that it was a peasants' movement, and in that kind of like, it's the lower middle class, the lower class that rose against the hierarchy, right? So I think, out of desperation, probably.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I think China is like one of the most prepared nations, possibly the most prepared nation for the impending collapse, just because of this land distribution thing that you tell me about, and that like all of these, the majority of people in China, you're saying, have land, and they can go to it anytime they want. And then just start growing their own food. So China is super well prepared, whereas almost everyone else is going to be struggling really, really hard because they've given all their land away to mega corporations, and then doing the distribution when when the governments are breaking down, it's too late. It's you're gonna need to you need to stabilize things, and the only way to stabilize them is the land distribution. I know the communists, they took all of my family's land, everybody. Well, basically they had a horse ranch in
Ukraine, right?
No, in Russia, in Zakhvatevo.
Okay, so you yeah.
Well, but also my Ukrainian, so that's on my grandfather's side. He was from Russia, but on the Ukrainian side, there was the kolkhoz. So you either had to join a kolkhoz, which is like a communist group farm, or you were independent. But if you join a kolkhoz, I think you'd get like 10 acres. And then if you didn't join a kolkhoz, you'd only get like 5 acres. And then, but my great grandmother didn't want to join a kolkhoz, and so she got like just the 5 acres. They took more than half of her land. She had more than that, way more than that before. And then, but she still managed to get by because they would grow like hemp for their clothing, and like food and things like that. And so they grew all very productive crops, and they would grow a pig, and the pig was their tax for the year. The tax collector would come around once a year, and they would give him a pig and a bottle of vodka, so that he wouldn't inspect the pig too thoroughly. So, but in Zahatevo, basically the peasants just kind of moved in because he had a horse ranch here, and they were just like, oh, well, there's a communist revolution, so it's all ours now. And then nobody took care of anything. Nobody took care of the horses, and my family ended up fleeing for their lives because so many people were being sent to Siberia. They're like, okay, if we go to Siberia, they can't send us to Siberia. And so they ended up doing that. But anyways, so there was a lot of disownership of land, unfortunately.
Was that Russia or Ukraine?
This is Russia right now, Zakhatevo. Yeah, but I mean, it was all Russia back then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ukraine was Russia, and everything was Russia. Like I have a thing from my uncle who was a priest in Lviv, which is like the most western part, and then it was minted during Tsar Nicholas II.
Cool.
There's the N, and there's a little 2 there too, and so the communists killed him too because they basically, well, my grandmother says, and then I read some books that apparently a lot of the Bolsheviks were actually Jewish, and they didn't like because they were basically the counter elite because they had been oppressed for hundreds of years by the Russians, and then they rebelled, and when they took power, they just had like a massive genocide of anybody that was Christian or anything like that. And so he was a priest, so he was on the list. And then my grandmother had in her passport that she was the daughter of the enemy of the people because she was the daughter of a priest. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so then they left to Canada around when?
So that was my parents. Yeah. So there's Lviv, and then Kiev. So basically, they moved to. So my parents moved to. Well, I'm on my father's side to Zhytomyr, and then. But I was born in Kiev. Because that was where the computers were. And then when they knew they were going to have me, they applied to immigrate to Canada because one of my great aunts, she was taken away by the Nazis and her family during the fascist revolution into the forced labor camps, and she was shoveling horse poop until the end of the war. But at the end of the war, she was in Western Berlin. So they took her all that way, and everyone else in that part of the family died. She was the only survivor. She had like 5 or 6 brothers, and none of them made it. And her mother and father, and none of that. So it was a tough. But after she was in Western Berlin, she had the opportunity to immigrate either to Australia or Canada, and she heard that the Aborigines were killing people in Australia, so she decided to move to Canada. And that's how we managed to get a sponsorship later. Yeah.
I think it was the other way around more here in Australia. We're massacring the Aborigines.
Yeah. Well, I think that she heard from like that they were killing the sheep or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Yeah.
Leon?
I'm going to have to say goodbye. I've got to prepare for a lesson at 10:30, so online lesson.
Fair enough. It's already past.
Been great to you.
All right. Any last comments from you guys? Or we're good to go?
No, just it's going to get interesting from here. Let's see.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye. Okay.
Yeah.
We leave you in the love and in
Thank
the
you,
light
Ray. All
of
the
the one
best.
infinite creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite creator. Adonai. All right. End of the stream.
Brilliant.